Good day, stoners, and welcome to another juicy episode of the Turning Stones podcast. Today's episode, a special one. We're going live here with John from Victoria. John, how's it going, mate?
Not too bad, Terence, and good day, all you stoners.
Thanks for joining us on a special episode today. Obviously now with Victoria's fourth wave, I believe it is. We're 15 months removed from the beginning of the pandemic, and you're in lockdown currently. So first and foremost, I guess not only myself, but the listeners would like to know, how's it all going? And how are you going personally?
Yeah, Terry, thanks for asking. I think that's actually quite important if we remove all of the noise around it. It's just asking people how they're going. Personally, I'm doing fine, but I must say it's definitely more challenging this fourth or fifth time around. I've lost count. It's just crazy. But no, it's I'm doing well. It's taking a bigger toll on quite a lot of people. But I guess we will start sinking our teeth into the meat on that bone
100%
during the call. Anyway, but personally, I'm doing fine. Thanks for asking.
Oh, that's good to hear. So yeah, it is the fourth wave. To be official, I suppose, and your fourth type of lockdown as well. So I guess right from the top, apparently there's a few Delta strains going around now. It's a new strain. I don't know if you've heard of it or not, John, but we've gone through various strains of COVID-19 and the coronavirus. We've gone through the Alpha strain, which is formerly known as the UK strain. And now they're talking about this Delta strain going around with in Victoria, and this strain here particularly, it's more transmissible, and it's actually a lot harder to detect genomic matching, which is obviously trying to, I guess, figure out where it all comes from, where it originates. So, have you heard anything like this? Have you been educated in regards to what strains are going around, or anything like this over there in Victoria in this current fourth wave?
Yeah, good touch point there, Terry. Where do I start with this one? So actually, the original strain that caused the lockdown was actually the Kappa strain. Kappa, as in the Kappa tracksuit pants.
Yeah.
So for all you trackie lovers out there, it was actually
the cunts out there.
Correct. It was actually the Kappa strain. So there's two main variants in India of concern, Kappa and Delta. Kappa was less severe, to summarize it. And that was the actual strain that caused the initial lockdown. However, Victoria have been testing around 50,000 people daily. That's just on average. So with that, they somehow have identified some people with the Delta strain, this more lethal strain that they were talking about. And funnily enough, no one actually knows where it has actually come from or where it is actually started. And as of today, the working hypothesis is that there has been some leak from hotel quarantine, but no one knows who, what, where, when, how. Funnily enough, I actually live in the same suburb as the family, or the same section of the city of the family who actually have this Delta variant of coronavirus.
Have you had a COVID-19 test yet? Even like now or ever since the pandemic started?
Personally, no. I felt fine. I mean, I've gotten my runny nose, but to be honest, it's wintertime. I'll go on a run and you're going to get a runny nose regardless. So no other symptoms. I have actually not gone and got a test.
That's good. Well, I mean, unless you need to, and clearly you don't, there's no point of getting one. But yeah, I've had 4, and I mean, the first one wasn't pleasant, and then by the fourth one, the lady goes up to me, geez, you haven't flinched at all. I said, it's not my first rodeo, love. And yeah, she just shoved that cotton bud up my nose and down my throat, and away we go. One of those drive-through COVID testing sites. So yeah, it's become a whole bloody industry in that respect anyway. But in regards to Victoria and what I'm interested in, because we hear a lot of chit chat on the news and all that sort of stuff. But what I'm interested to know is that you're on the ground there in Victoria, and in the greater Melbourne area. What lockdowns, restrictions and rules are currently in place? So what can you do and what can't you do? Just give us a bit of
Victoria
insight.
actually. Sure, Terry. I'm sure all of your listeners will appreciate it. Victoria's
They're called
actually quite
stoners,
strict.
John.
Stoners. That's it. Sorry, I did forget that term, stoners. Actually, I'm a stoner myself, but that's a topic for another day. Okay, so Victoria's actually quite stringent on the rules and regulations that are put into place. They call it under a public health order or a direction of the chief health officer. So initially it was pretty much stay at home, everything's closed. To an extent, your restaurants still take away. They introduced this 5 kilometre rule, which is always contentious. So you can't be outside of your 5 kilometre radius from your place of residence.
Oh, wow, 5Ks.
Yeah, so for any shopping, you can only go within 5 kilometres, exercise only within 5 kilometres. And for anyone who knows, I love riding a bike, so 5 kilometres on a bike really isn't that far. But like with any rules, there are always some loopholes and not loopholes, I guess. There's always some, can't think of the correct terminology here, Terry, but there's always some
loopholes, John.
Yeah, loopholes. Okay. Let's go with the term.
Let's just enlighten the stoners quickly before we continue. That for those of you that don't know, John's been on the podcast before, and thank you very much. And the way we know each other is that we went to university together. We've done an accounting degrees together, so we're both accountants. I'm primarily specialising in tax, and John's an auditor. And in the industry of accounting and in our profession, we're always looking to obviously better our clients' scenarios and situations, and of course, finding legal loopholes. And it seems as if you're just about to tell me that you found another legal loophole, but this time with the pandemic and the lockdown.
Oh, there's always
you love a loophole,
loopholes. There's always great loopholes to explore. So I guess amidst all the rules where there's only 5 reasons to leave your house, there was 4 before. 5 now. The extra ones to get a jab, which I'm sure we'll talk about soon. And the 5 kilometre radius and all that, there are loopholes. So one of the biggest loopholes is to go and see an intimate partner.
Oh, wow.
Now, they haven't really defined an intimate partner, Terry. So an intimate partner can be a cafe, or you can sway that however you want, because
you can leave
in this day and age you can't say to go see a girlfriend or go see a boyfriend. They've labelled it intimate partner.
Okay, yeah, but of course now with all these political correctness in regards to genders and that sort of stuff, so they've just called it intimate partner, which is it's a bunch of bullshit, and it's probably a whole other podcast in itself. But and obviously as well, stoners that have kept up to date, we've done a political correctness podcast, so be sure to catch on that one. But so you're allowed to leave the 5K radius to see an intimate partner.
Correct. You are allowed to go.
What a loophole!
Where you need to go for an intimate partner visitation.
So you could have just a mate, right? Like say, for example, one of the boys. He could live 30 k's other side of town, right? You could just say, hey, near your house, let's catch up at the cafe for a coffee, and that's essentially catching up with an intimate partner, isn't it?
First of all, the cafes are closed, but you can probably get away with Macca's drive-through coffee. And then that's an intimate partner, is it?
Oh, wow.
Technically. So
what are the other reasons? Obviously, that's one of the 5. Then you've got exercise, but you can't leave the 5K radius for exercise, can you? Or is there another loophole with that?
It's exercise for 1 hour or two hours a day. So there's a time limit on that. Shopping for essential goods. 2. 3 is for medical reasons. 4, I think it's got to do with permitted work. Okay. And medical reasons, I think, also captures your domestic violence things as well. And 5 is to get the jab, to go get the coronavirus vaccination.
So luckily for you, and I guess for me as well, and all of us accountants out there, and a lot of those office workers, as long as you've got internet access and you've got a computer in front of you, you can pretty much work from home. I mean, working from home has its pros and cons. I guess it was a bit of a novelty when we all first did it back in, I guess, March, April, May last year, when we were just new to this whole pandemic space. But then after a while, it just gets beyond the joke, and then you actually want to start having that social face-to-face interaction. You've gone through a fair bit of working from home, John. I don't mind it, but fortunately enough for me here in South Australia is that it's got to a point now we're all back in our offices, and working from home is actually optional and it's discretionary as opposed to it being forced or mandated. Just throwing the question to you. How are you coping with working from home? Does it have its efficiencies, or are you finding it harder than actually being in the office?
I don't mind it, Terry. I actually enjoy the working from home environment because I structure the day how it works for me. I guess I'm quite lucky. I have a very reasonable boss who's perfectly fine for me to just hop off and go for a walk.
Yep. Mental health is very important as well, so that would assist.
Correct. But just in terms of workplaces, what I guess I just don't understand. I need some explanation from the Victorian government on this. So I really would like to see the health research on how the construction work spaces are still able to be up and operating with thousands of people working on these inner city apartment blocks. So these are all, I guess, union-run sites with the CFMEU.
Yes.
And somehow they have struck a deal with the government to remain open, and they even remained open throughout the entire 6-month lockdown that we had in 2020. They did not miss a beat on any day. But if your poor Jim's mowing, working on his own here to go cut lawn, they weren't able to go. Yeah, if you were working on a CFMEU union construction site in the city with close to 500 to 1,000 people on that same job site each day, you were allowed. It just made no sense whatsoever. It was just picking favourites.
Isn't it interesting that construction is an essential, I guess, not service, but it's an essential business to be still operating, I guess, as per normal. That's interesting. Yeah. The fact that they could still operate, normally, whereas, you've got your cafe operators. Yes, all right, you can't take patrons, but are they still allowed to be open for takeaways?
Yeah, see, actually, well, regardless of what you think of the government's decision to allow that to happen, right? At the very least, what actually happened was those construction workers were going in and buying a pie and a iced coffee from the local store. So that sort of kept a couple of these small businesses afloat. But I definitely feel for anyone who has a small business because it's just another slap in the face.
Absolutely. And I mean, you know what? Obviously now with ScoMo giving out some extra handouts for those in Victoria that are suffering some sort of financial hardship with this fourth lockdown. Still, I mean, that's just pretty much breaking even for a lot of those small businesses, or just enough to keep and stay afloat. But you know what? The landscape's going to change, and it already has changed. I mean, South Australia is nearly as normal as it was pre-COVID, and you just can feel the effects. And especially with myself working in the city, you can really see how it's changed. In a lot of the population's still sort of scared to go out into the city, and just speaking to a lot of businesses. I actually spoke to a pharmacist last night who owns a Terry White chemist in Rundle Mall, and he said that we're just not getting the same traffic that we once were getting back in pre-COVID. And he was even blaming the government, saying it's about time we start opening borders and getting some international students, because a lot of these businesses in CBDs rely upon those students and just everything else that comes with it. But just on that, like, I don't see a reason why they can't open borders internationally and just say to those that want to come here, hey, happy for you to come here, just do your 2 weeks quarantine. Have your test before you fly, 72 hours before you fly. If it's negative, jump on the plane, come here. But unfortunately, until the vaccine gets rolled out or a few other stars have to align, just do your 2 weeks quarantine. And I'm sure a lot of people would do that. Of course, we only have a maximum amount of beds available to house these quarantines, but just open the borders. I mean, a lot of industry, a lot of businesses out there need this to happen sooner rather than later. And to be honest with you, yeah, all right, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. Yes, closing the borders is trying to restrict and contain this pandemic, but at the same time, you're hurting those that are here, that are relying upon those people that need to come. Thoughts?
This is an entire topic on its own here. It's a lot of meat on this bone. It's challenging. Look, I do understand the health implications. I just think the government has conditioned us to be so fearful of coronavirus that it's not going to happen anytime soon, purely for political gain now. I've got a lot of colleagues in the UK, the US, and they're going about their business like nothing's happened now.
Yeah.
Sure, they had it really bad. They've returned back to normal. No wearing face masks like we have to here in Victoria. They still have greater than 5,000 cases a day.
Actually, I've got the stats quickly, John. So I was just going to say, do we overreact too much here in Australia? When we get 6 cases a day, it's like, straight away, instant lockdown, circuit breaker lockdowns, all this shit. When we just get like 6, 7, 8 cases a day, it's just, wow, the country gets turned upside down. Whereas right now, I know for a fact the UK is returning back to some sort of normality. Things are open, a lot less places are requiring masks and that sort of stuff. But the UK is still averaging, their 7-day average is 3,500 cases a day. The USA is returning back to normal. Their 7-day average is 14,000 cases a day. Portugal, who just hosted the UEFA Champions League final with fans, and fans haven't been to a soccer game in over 15 months. They're averaging 546 cases a day, and that's the 7-day average for those 3 countries. That's significantly more than our 6 cases a day that's the 7-day average currently in Victoria. And we're overreacting. We're locking down, giving you 5 reasons to leave the house. Over there, I guess they're living with it. They're just accepting it. That's going to be part of life going forward for the near future. What's going on here?
The reality is it's going to be part of life for the rest of life. There is sadly, there is no way to eliminate this. It's just like the common cold. Or not the common cold. Sorry, if you get the flu, we normally say, I have the flu, but you really don't have the flu. You really just have common cold. If you have influenza, you definitely know about it. And that was the Great Spanish Flu, just like we call it China virus here. The Great Spanish Flu of the 20s. After World War One. It was the 20s. That still goes around now. It's just part of life. It's just what happens. But in my opinion, I'll leave all the stoners to make their own minds up on this, but we are overreacting way too much. And it's purely because it's become so politicized now that it's a political minefield that if there are cases and people die, there are political points.
Yeah. So I've got a conspiracy theory here, John, and obviously the Stoners and I, and here at Turning Stones podcast, we love a good conspiracy or two, and especially a juicy conspiracy. Do you reckon this latest lockdown, this is just a left field thought, this latest lockdown, do you reckon it's just a push to get people vaccinated? Because
definitely
the vaccination rollout. I was
going to touch this. I'm so happy.
It's been really slow in Australia. Our vaccine rollout is been so subpar. It's honestly been on the level of a third world country where they're struggling to get vaccines into the country, whereas we've got no problems getting it in. We're just getting problems getting it into people. And maybe this latest lockdown, especially in Victoria, has now pushed people to get this vaccine, because prior to actually this latest 4th lockdown in Victoria, I think only 200,000 people had got vaccinated in the state. Now it's 500,000 people. So in the space of, say, 8-9 days, which your current lockdown is going on for, you have more than doubled your vaccination rollout in 9 days than you had in the 3 months prior. So what do you reckon? Do you reckon it's a push to get everyone vaccinated?
I think you've hit the nail on the head.
Thanks, John.
In my opinion, yeah, it definitely is a push. It's let's create some fear and get people vaccinated. I mean, Terry, you're a numbers person. Let's talk some numbers here. So I'm leaving everyone to make up their own minds. This is just my opinion. The efficacy rate of the vaccine, let's start with AstraZeneca. I think it's in the 80%. Okay. When we talk about efficacy, we talk about how effective the vaccine is. Not that I'm a doctor or anything, it's just my general knowledge, how effective the vaccine is. And in this case, it's how effective it is stopping you from being hospitalized or dying from the coronavirus, okay? So vaccines don't stop you transmitting it. It's one big myth that everyone thinks. It doesn't. If everyone in this country is vaccinated, the virus is still going to spread.
Oh, it still exists.
It's still alive. Part of it. So numbers, AstraZeneca around 8%. I think Pfizer's up to in the 90%. Okay.
I can confirm, John, just quickly, the AstraZeneca is in the 70s. So 70% efficacy. And then we've got roughly Pfizer and Moderna, which is an American vaccine that we have not approved here at the TGA for unknown reasons. They're around 95%, the Pfizer and the Moderna. So interesting there. Actually, that's another whole podcast in itself, why we only have selected 2 vaccines when there's a lot more out there. But anyway, yeah, let's continue.
So you're a numbers guy. So, okay. According to my best or last review of the numbers, contracting coronavirus, if you contract it, you have over a 98% chance of actually surviving. It's only like 1.2 or 1.3% of actual people that actually became fatally ill and pass away with coronavirus. So if we just take a step back and think of these numbers here, well, am I going to take a vaccine that's going to give me, an 80% chance and the vaccine's untested and unproven? Or am I just going to take my 98% chance that I already have?
Exactly. Hey, look, you call me a numbers man, but you've done the same degree as I have, and we're both chartered accountants, so I could say the same thing for you. You're a numbers man too, John, and I think you make a really valid point. I actually think we've got a higher than 98% success rate, given that, because obviously the field's not the same for everyone. We're young, we're fit, you like to bike ride, so obviously you're doing some sort of physical activity. You watch what you eat. You make sure you put hot water in the macchiato when you brew a nice coffee. So you're doing all the right things, right? And that's a little shout out to Sam there at Turning Stones, who puts cold water, and once again, a whole podcast in itself in regards to how to brew coffee. But you're doing all the right things. So I actually think you've got a better than 98% chance of surviving COVID if you were to get it. And so many stories out there of young adults in their 20s and 30s getting coronavirus and recovering as per normal. And they related it similar to those that have had it to the influenza. So, yeah, look, it's it could be a whole bunch of bullshit, to be honest with you here, John. But at the same time, vaccines usually inject you with what you're trying to be saved from. Like, so when we get the influenza shot, we're basically injecting ourselves with the flu to obviously have so the body gets a little taste of it. Obviously, then the body starts having its little mechanisms to say, oh, what's this foreign substance? It's obviously foreign and deadly. Let's put it out. And obviously it does its things where it sort of tries to kill off those little bad bits of bacteria, but it's only a small amount, obviously not to hurt us or harm us. And potentially the same thing with the coronavirus. I'm not too sure exactly what's in it, but who's to say they're not injecting it with us, which they probably are, and then that may cause some sort of spread or adverse reactions.
Yeah, that's part of, I guess, reverse engineering the virus to understand it,
Mm.
and then make or build a vaccine that has that, I guess, encourages your body to induce response
Yeah,
to, I
that's right.
guess, eliminate this foreign substance that it's been introduced to it. So yeah, it's interesting. The vaccines now, they're all new technology, haven't been tested. Well, I say haven't been tested. They have been tested, although I caveat that by saying where is the long-term testing, which obviously hasn't been done because
Yeah.
they haven't been around that long. So I do understand, I do sympathise with anyone who has any vaccine
Doubts.
or doubts. Correct.
Yeah. So I guess my other flip side to this as well, I mean, there's no incentive for Australians to get the vaccine currently. Like honestly, they've haven't really promised us saying, oh, we're going to return to some sort of normality if everyone gets vaccinated. So there's no push to get it. All right, yeah, we've had a few little outbreaks here and there, but once again, you've raised that 98% chance of survival, and of course, returning back to full fitness and full health. But there's no incentive here in Australia. For example, especially just consider myself in my scenario. I'm in South Australia. There's zero community transmission. I can't leave this country. I can't go to Victoria where there's an abundance of coronavirus, apparently, according to the news. Yeah, you only have a 6-day average in terms of cases, but I can't go there. I can't leave the country. So everywhere I do go, according to all the statistics in the news, is COVID free. So why would I get the vaccine? I'm not against it, but why would I get it when I don't need it just right now? If I had to go visit family in Europe, which I do have, right? And they said, look, when you come back into Australia, you have two options. You get the vaccine and you go straight back to normal life. As soon as you get like one test, it's negative and you've got the vaccine, yep, back into normal life. Or if you don't want the vaccine, you have to do 2 weeks quarantine. There's no like options like that out there. I just don't understand it. There's no incentive. Am I speaking sense or am I just got a biased view? What do you think?
No, we touched on a couple of points there. So, yeah, Australia is becoming a hermit kingdom, just like North Korea. We're the only country who has restricted all inbound and outbound travel. I guess in terms of incentives, it's you hear big businesses like Qantas saying we're going to give you frequent flyer points to go get the vaccine. Come on, do we really need to bribe people to have a vaccine now? I mean, in terms of incentives, I know you're talking more about let's think about long-term future, opening up. Yeah, I don't see the incentive as well. I think the majority of people are kind of happy the way it is now. But yeah, it's definitely a tough one.
I actually think Australia is going backwards every single day that we don't open up, because what happens is that people are starting to get complacent. And we know, especially in our industry and our field of work, complacency is a killer. Complacency is cancer. Never, ever be satisfied with the status quo. Always look to improve. And we're looking at a country or a business or anything. Always look for opportunities to improve, expand, do better. Whereas right now, we're just happy to just chill at home, not interact and go out and socialize. We just put the Netflix on, eat a tub of ice cream. Oh, yeah, and life's good. You know what? It's not good. It's a Band-Aid solution. Life was never like this, and life should never be like this. Yes, we're going through a 1 in 100-year scenario. Hopefully, we'll get through it better on the back end, and we'll learn a few things from it. And I think, obviously, there are a few silver linings in the fact that, now we can start doing business a little bit differently through teleconferencing and what we're doing currently right now. Whereas, you're in a state where I can't get into, and you're in a state where you can't come to me because you're trapped, and technically I can't get to you. So, but we can do this. And that's pretty cool. So there are a few silver linings out of this pandemic, but for the most part, I think eventually, once we do get out of it, people are going to be like, oh, geez, what a time that was. Remember we used to do this back in the lockdown where we couldn't leave the house, toilet paper was scarce, all this rubbish. I actually spoke to a friend of mine yesterday who's a manager of a Woolworths here in South Australia. He told me that now there are stock cutbacks at every single store around the country so they can then supply every single Victorian store. So, for example, if, say, this particular Woolworths in South Australia was usually getting 10 pallets of toilet paper a week, now they're only getting 7, and 3 of those pallets are now going to Victoria. So then if you add that all up, Victoria is just now getting all this extra stock because people over there are thinking it's a bloody apocalypse, cleaning shelves, thinking, oh, it's doomsday. Are we serious? Like, what kind of shit is the government running, and what kind of misinformation are they giving us in the fact that 6 cases a day and Portugal's getting 550 odd? It's ridiculous. And Portugal's opened up and it's all well and good there. They're having paellas in Porto and Lisbon. They're bloody doing the salsas there, mate. They're probably having orgies and threesomes without masks.
If there's any Portuguese person listening, I'm very sorry for the comments that Terry made. There's no paella or salsa. That's all Spanish. That's very offensive. That's very offensive. If you're Portuguese, you're probably eating bacalhau, which is a salted codfish, and you're probably
Portuguese tart.
Yeah, Portuguese tart. And you're probably listening to some fado music. So we do apologise for Terrence's misclassification.
Oh, they actually apparently they make a better chorizo than the Spanish do, by the way.
Well, let's not go there. Let's not go there. But I would say if anyone does get a chance to go to Portugal, please go. Lovely country. Go to Lisbon. You have the time of your life.
Don't tease us, John. We can't leave the fucking country, mate. Don't tease us.
Yeah. I'll just take a little bit of a detour here. You do realise that Portugal is one of the only countries in the world who've actually legalised all drug use?
Really?
No one knows that. No one knows that. In Amsterdam, it's technically illegal still.
Yeah, it is.
The police just turn a blind eye. Portugal, since 2001, it's personal drug use is perfectly fine. It's decriminalised. If you get caught, they'll feed you into an intervention program, but you will not be penalised at all for any kind of personal drug use. Anyway, we have detoured.
We have, but now that you have said that, I just want to make one more question on that. So if I'm at a cafe there along the boardwalk in Porto and I crack the glass pipe, on a hypothetical basis, of course, and I start smoking, no polizia come past, then I'm all fine. No one should look at me any other way.
I dare say you'll get a few looks, but it's just decriminalised. I mean, especially if you're backing out a glass pipe here. Jeez. Straight on the hard stuff, Terrence.
Well, it's all or nothing sometimes, you know. But yeah, sorry, we did go off on a tangent. John, I do want to move on a little bit. We're 15 months into the pandemic, still no clarity on its origin. Did it come from a zoological source, or was it made in a lab? Now that we're 15 months removed from the beginning, what do you think?
This is what gets me. So I don't want to pick political sides here. However, Trump said this. He goes, this virus came from a Chinese lab. Every media organization, Facebook and Instagram tagged it, right? They tagged it as fake news. Now they're all backing out because it's actually real news. It's actually real news stories now.
I know.
The virus came out of a lab in China. And I don't know if everyone's up to date with the news, but just overnight. Actually, that article ran in the Weekend Australian this weekend that the virus came from China. The virus came manufactured from a lab in Wuhan. And I guess I don't believe in coincidences. There's no such thing as a coincidence. I mean, if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, swims like a duck, or whatever it is, it's a bloody duck. Now, in Wuhan, it is the only place in the world that has a scientific lab that actually focuses purely on coronaviruses.
Yeah. Only place in the world.
And only place in the world that purely focuses on these coronaviruses. And it was known previously for having very lax standards and that a potential breach could happen. So I don't know, man. Did this come from a bat in bloody Ming Jong's supermarket there?
Yep.
No, it to me, it's just too much of a coincidence. I mean, you could believe what you want to believe, but
yeah,
I don't believe in coincidence. It's just a principle that I've always had. I mean, there are some very juicy facts there. The story can get twisted however it wants, but I definitely think it came, or I think it's credible and possible that it could have originated from a lab. And then if you listen to Trump today, it was on actually the news. He was actually calling for China to pay the world $10 trillion.
What an animal he is.
Repatriation. So I've got a feeling he's going to run in 2024. I think the next election is.
Yeah, it is.
On this basis, and it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, that is going to be interesting. Not only him running again, but just the fact that I just love his boldness. And all right, yeah, it's controversial, but I just love those outlandish statements. Obviously he'd get
China
good sources of, he'd get some good sources of information. So a lot of it just wouldn't be hearsay and rumor and innuendo. A lot of it would be spitting facts. And the fact that he then called it China virus for a period when he was in the hot seat there as the president of the United States, but now obviously coming out and just saying to China, hey, you're the origin, you're the reason for it. Pay us $10 trillion. That's how much you owe the rest of the world. Right or wrong, he can say what he wants. He's entitled to his opinion. Obviously, he's not in power anymore, but he's got plenty of power and plenty of coin. So, and the media loves a Trump headline. So I don't think Joe Biden's been making too many headlines. And I think a lot of journalists have sort of been scaving their teeth for some work since Trump's left the position. So that, I guess US politics is always a bit interesting and strange. But on media, I guess those journos and all that sort of stuff, how dumb do you think they were thinking that it came from a bat? I'm leaning towards it obviously originating from a lab, John. I mean, if Chinese people have been eating bats for centuries, potentially even millennia, why did this particular bat cause the virus? Like, are we that stupid? Are we that gullible? Seriously, come on.
All meat actually contains pathogens and bad things. That's why we cook the meat. It's part of the process. I don't know. I think even with Trump calling it China virus, okay, he has credibility in calling it that. Unfortunately, some journalists and some people, the public, take that a bit too far, just like the Spanish flu.
They're spinning it the other way.
They spin it the other way, China virus, and then they start doing some horrible things to the local Asian community, which is bad. I mean, we do not condone any sort of racism or violence whatsoever. It's terrible. I mean, just because of his, position of power, and he did call it China virus. I do think he has some merit in calling it that. It's just some people taking it the wrong way. But anyway, just want to make a point here that we don't condone any sort of racial
vilifications.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
I agree. And there's no room for that here on the Turning Stones podcast. So yeah, if you're gonna flip the script here, John, and start being racist, then I'm just gonna have to end this call right here, right now.
Yeah, that goes for every single listener.
Nah, but that's true. We're being 100% sincere with that. No room for racism, as every single club in the Premier League were wearing on their right sleeve.
It's true. But I guess back to your question on the media and journalists and the whole lot, it comes back to, I guess, the power of big tech, our big Facebooks, our big Instagrams, our big Googles. I mean, they control world news now. I mean, I don't know about you, but when's the last time you got your news from actually the nightly bulletin or actually paid attention to it. I mean, most of the news most of the news you probably would have got from your phone, from whatever
100%.
source you want. It might be the ABC, it might be Sky News, it might be Trump's Rebel News channel or whatever you call it.
I'll tell you what,
get their news
media,
from different sources.
Social media has, like, the pandemic's been a blessing in disguise for social media. Not only have we got more time to be on our phones and scrolling through our news feeds and all that sort of stuff, but prior to COVID, a lot of people actually start to take social media detoxes because it was the same rubbish. You get memories, you get on this day's crap, and then you get whose birthday it is. Like, if you don't actually normally say to someone happy birthday because you don't remember their birthday or you don't even know their date of birth, but Facebook tells you, you might just flick them a message. It's just what kind of game were we playing? And then it got to a point where I'm flicking through my newsfeed. This is newsfeed before, this is pre-pandemic. And I'm just going through all these pages that I've liked when I was 17, 18. I'm thinking, why the fuck did I like this page? Like, this has actually got useless content on there. It's actually just clogging my shit up. And I used to just think there's no significance. But since the pandemic, all these media and journalists and all these news corps are now like, it's breathed new life into social media, where sometimes, and I'm guessing a lot of Victorians probably be using this right now as well, is that you probably get your latest daily updates from your premiers, from your government officials who go live on social media, because that is probably the best way to interact with the people. Or if you don't catch the live stream, they always put these posts up of the latest day's statistics, the new rules and regulations that are in place, or the new easing of restrictions. So it's actually become another way of getting information. And I think, Facebook and Zuckerberg and all these blokes out there and females as well, all these people out there would be licking their lips saying, this is breathed new life into our social media space.
Yeah, I think it has breathed a whole new wave into social media. I did think it was actually coming down a bit. The government was cracking down on these big tech companies, and then all of a sudden you could just see their unrelentless power and strength. I mean, one post can go viral.
Yes,
and literally you would have millions, billions of people believing a particular thing. And this is another whole podcast in its own, Terry. I mean, the power of these big companies and how much they actually control. They tag posts or news as fake news, but 6 months later down the track, it's actually proven that it's real news. Now, should they be able to do that? It's just a whole other can of worms. So.
Yeah, exactly. And like, just going off that comment that you made, one post can go viral. Well, I'm just looking at the statistics now, right? Spotify, and this is as of the 28th of April 2021 on The Verge. So I'm just obviously stating the source of where I've got this information from. But Spotify premium subscriber count increased 21% to 158 million people, right, worldwide. The Joe Rogan Experience moved exclusively to Spotify, and this is obviously given the jump and the increase of 21% to 158 million subscribers, paid subscribers. So this doesn't actually include those that get it for free. And Joe Rogan's podcast is, whether you're premium, that's ad-free, or you got the free subscription, you have a few ads in there. So 158 million paid subscribers. Just imagine Joe Rogan tackles... or he attracts 20% of those 158 million, right? Let's do the math here. I need to get the calculator.
I can't believe
so that means
next to you.
He's got 31.6 million people, paid subscribers, listening to him. That is more than the Australian population. So as you said, and this is why I'm doing a full circle here, I'm getting to the point now. Australian population's got 26 million people. So we all listen to our government, right? Then that's 26 million people that the government's got, that Scott Morrison's got at his disposal. Joe Rogan has 31.6 million people at his disposal. That's 20%. That's 20% of the paid subscribers on Spotify, let alone what he's got on YouTube. and anywhere else you can potentially get your podcast. And obviously now he's exclusive to Spotify, but he was in other places. And this doesn't include free subscribers. So I'm just saying that people that aren't even in political power, just opinionated people, have more of a, I guess, muscle flex than some governments out there. So it's like you might hear Joe Rogan have his opinions and thoughts, but then you've got the government officials telling you one thing. It's like people get brainwashed and persuaded. It's like it's very interesting space. And I guess you can start classifying Spotify or even Joe Rogan as a form of social media to some extent.
Yeah, I think you got a point there, Terry. It's just all these people with who have strong influences. I know I'm going on another tangent, but it's the same category as Elon Musk and all your cryptocurrencies.
Yeah,
it's like one tweet can just manipulate a market completely.
Yeah, that is crazy. And speaking on the cryptos, geez, I mean, what Elon Musk said that, I don't believe in the Bitcoin's blockchain. It's not energy efficient or something along those lines. And boy, just the crypto market shit itself. And he probably sold a whole bunch as well. And who knows what the hell he was doing. I reckon he just had a bit of play money and thought, you know what, a couple of tweets, put some money into it before I do that. And then, try and get as much gains as I could and sell off. And then, chuck a few tweets out there, just obviously criticizing it. And there's a lot of sheep out there, and they would have followed suit. And unfortunately, it's turned a bull market into a bear market. But then you've got those that live and die by that HODL acronym, which is hold on for dear life. Heard of that one?
Yeah, I'm one of them who always hold on for dear life.
Anyway, when you've got your greys and you're 70 years old and you're thinking, geez, how long can I hold on for dear life?
Yeah, I don't think I'll be getting grey hair, but we'll move on to the next topic.
Yeah, exactly. John, we're nearly wrapped up here. Just quickly back on the vaccine, your thoughts on it overall, and will you be getting it?
Personally, no, won't be getting it. Not to, I guess, if we just break it down by the numbers like we did, I think the potential risks of the vaccine outweigh the benefits for my own age category and my own personal circumstances. I'll leave it up to everyone else to make their own decision, though.
But just as a little prediction, do you think you'll be backed into a corner at one point or another where you're going to have to get it, where you might not be able to get back into the office, you might not be able to go, internationally, flying or domestically without it? Do you reckon you're going to be backed into a corner? Or we are all going to be back?
I love being backed into a corner because I'll just come out fighting, so.
Why not?
Exactly. I mean, you got to think of all your human rights, and I mean, you can't force people to get a jab. You can't. You just can't. I mean, you can put up boundaries like hotel quarantine, which is obviously an obstacle, and then it will cause people to reconsider. But you can't say you must get this vaccine. It's just wrong.
Absolutely, it is. And at this point, they haven't made it mandatory, and I don't think they ever will. But they're gonna write a narrative where it's like, well, if you don't get it, which you don't have to, you just can't do all these things, and that's going to be the catch-22 situation, unfortunately. And I'm fearful for this day, but I think it's coming. Yeah,
let's wait and see. I mean, I'd be surprised if they took that route. I mean, purely on the basis that it doesn't stop transmission. It only stops you from being hospitalized and or dying, which already I think our maths proves the point there.
Yeah, 100%. Anyway, just quickly in finishing up, how's Strava going and your bike rides?
Oh, I'm doing some great intimate partner visitations. Fortunately, my intimate partner lives quite far out. She moves a bit, so I just have to chase her on my bike to get the Strava kilometers up.
Why not? Exactly. You don't have to wear masks when you exercise, do you?
You actually don't have to wear a mask anywhere. That's another loophole. Actually, that's what we call you have a medical exemption. So if
like a
no one
respiratory
really
issue.
asks anymore, yeah, correct. You just say that you have a medical exemption. That's a loophole. Because you say you have a medical exemption, no one can actually demand to see that medical exemption because it's doctor-patient confidentiality.
Yes.
So that's another loophole that everyone here is exploiting.
Far out. What a sham that is. I mean, even flying, I don't know if you've flown during the pandemic or not, but I did come to Melbourne earlier this year, and yeah, you have to wear a mask in the airport and on the plane. Especially on a plane, you think, geez, that does make sense because you're in a confined area breathing the same air. That really is important. But when it comes to the meal cart coming around and the snack cart, but it's okay to take your mask off to have a drink of water or eat a bag of peanuts. By the way, airplane peanuts, good shit. But it's okay to do that. It's okay to take your mask off. So I'm thinking that just defeats the purpose. So if you can take your mask off for 2-3 minutes to have a drink of water and some peanuts, in those 2 minutes, that's enough to catch COVID, potentially. So why even bother with masks to begin with? Or is it just for an optic standpoint to make everyone feel more safe and comfortable?
I concur with your peanut statements, and I concur with your overall statements. I think it's just a tactic to try and make people feel more comfortable. In reality, I think we just need to bite the bullet here. If you're going to get it, especially in Australia, you're just going to have some bad luck because the rates are so low. So, I mean, forcing people to breathe their own air in while they're walking down the street alone, it just defies logic. Okay, I get it in a confined space, but I'm fearful of what we're becoming when people just blindly follow government rules that make no sense and actually take away some of your personal liberties that, we fought so hard to get. So,
no, you're right, John. Truer words have never been spoken. Thank you very much for tonight and joining the podcast. We'll hopefully have you on very, very shortly. And hopefully the next time we do actually have a podcast together on a completely different topic, hopefully that we don't have to talk about the pandemic anymore, you'll be here or I'll be there. But unfortunately, in the meantime, that can't be possible. So yes, teleconferencing, Skypes, Zooms, Teams, for now, they will have to suffice. So making sure you stoners follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and our handle is @TurnstonesPod. And of course, catch us on Spotify. We're on iHeartRadio as well, and YouTube, which is Turning Stones Podcast. So we're all there. All you have to do is just chuck it in your Google machine and you'll find us. Hopefully you follow and subscribe, John. You better.
I already told you I'm a stoner.
Yeah, you are. And you've actually got one of the Turning Stones mugs. So good on you. And they are still available, by the way. And we are about to drop some limited edition merchandise very, very shortly. So be active on our Instagram. That's where we're going to drop it. And we're going to reveal it. So, yeah, really exciting things to come in this space for the Turning Stones podcast. So we're turning a chapter. And hopefully this might be one of the very last podcasts on the pandemic. We said that after the first one. And now I'm saying that again after the last one. But, it's become a real topic of debate. And you can't really have a conversation with anyone these days without mentioning it. So it's one of those things, John. And before we leave, you want to give yourself a plug or say anything to the stoners before we sign out?
Have a good one, stoners. That's about it. Let's just enjoy our night. Or day or morning, wherever in the world you may be listening.
Exactly. It's 5 p.m. somewhere. Crack a beer, and maybe a glass pipe and a glass pipe in Portugal.